The storm howled through the mountain pass, rattling the branches of pines that whispered forgotten tales. Rain-soaked earth released its rich, loamy scent, mingling with the sharp tang of gunpowder lingering in the air, a reminder of the violence that once echoed in these woods. The distant rumble of thunder lent an unsettling rhythm to the world, while the cabin, squatting low amidst the trees, appeared like a ghost of resilience against the tempest. Inside, the flickering glow of a dying lantern cast shadows that danced against the rough-hewn walls, revealing the scars of a life marred by conflict. Windy, a weary Native American woman, paused at the threshold, her heart racing beneath the weight of solitude and loss. Once a vibrant spirit among her people, she now found herself adrift, separated from her tribe by the winds of fate and the harsh realities of a world that often turned a blind eye to her kind. A fierce storm had driven her into these mountains in search of solace, but as she stepped further into the cabin, she found herself drawn to the giant form on the floor, a man draped in shadows, his chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the thunder outside. Memories of her people's struggles surged within her, and a buried artifact, a necklace of twisted metal and bone, rested against her skin, a symbol of survival and loss that now seemed to pulse with an awakening promise of something more. Windy stepped cautiously toward the man, the rough floorboards creaking beneath her feet like the groans of a wounded beast. Rain lashed against the cabin, blurring the world outside into a watercolor of dark hues. The man lay unconscious, his face rugged and familiar, etched with the struggle of a life lived on the precipice of violence. Each scar told a story, of battles fought, of losses endured, echoing the pain of her own people. A low growl of thunder seemed to answer her unspoken question, what fate had brought them both to this desolate haven? As she knelt beside him, the warmth of his body contrasted sharply with the chill that seeped into her bones. The smell of sweat, earth and gunpowder enveloped her, igniting memories of her father teaching her the ways of survival, the way the wind whispered warnings, the way the shadows could betray you. Windy reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against a scarred bicep, the skin warm and alive. A flash of lightning illuminated his face, revealing eyes when they opened, like stormy skies, fierce yet haunted. "What? Who?" he murmured, his voice a gravelly echo that barely broke the heavy silence. Panic danced in his gaze for a heartbeat, but then it softened as he took in her presence. Windy felt the weight of that gaze, a silent acknowledgement of their shared burden. For a fleeting moment, the world outside faded. It was just the two of them, caught in the eye of a storm that raged both within and without. "I am Windy," she said, her own voice trembling, fighting through years of silence. "I found you here, in the storm." She could feel the pulse of her heart, the rhythm quickening as if the earth itself recognized the gravity of the encounter. "Storm's a cruel mistress," he replied, wincing as he propped himself on one elbow. "But it's better than the damned sun." His words were curt, but there was a flicker of something deeper, a connection forged in the shared understanding of hardship. Windy hesitated. The necklace against her chest felt heavier with meaning. "We all carry scars," she whispered, a hint of vulnerability threading through her tone. "Some are visible, others buried beneath the skin." He regarded her, a mixture of surprise and curiosity visible in his eyes, as he slowly pushed himself upright to sit against the wall. The lantern flickered, casting an ephemeral glow that danced around the edges of the room, illuminating the layers of their pasts. "Why do you care?" he asked, tension taut in his voice. "You don't know me." Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment the truth hung heavily in the air. "And you don't know me," she answered, her words quaking with unspoken truths. "But I see you. We are both lost in this world, shaped by pain. Perhaps it is time we found a way to rise from the ashes." This time, the silence bore a different weight, one filled with the promise of understanding and the potential for something like redemption. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, a fragile bond began to take root. The storm continued its relentless assault, the wind howling through the cracks of the cabin like a banshee, echoing the unvoiced fears of both souls trapped within. Windy glanced toward the door, half expecting it to burst open, revealing a tempest of both nature and humanity. "We are not safe here," she murmured, her heart racing. He shifted, wincing as he pressed his weight against the rough wooden wall. "Safer than out there," he rasped, his scarred face a portrait of resilience against the forces of the storm. The lantern flickered again, revealing the full extent of his wounds, a tapestry of violence gilded with survival. Each mark told stories of battles fought, battles lost, and battles that never ended. "Why do you stay?" Windy asked, her voice trembling like the flame of the lantern. "You hide from the world, yet it finds you, doesn't it?" The man looked away, the shadows deepening in his eyes. "It's easier to let the storm rage outside than face what's within." His words hung heavy in the air, laden with unhealed scars and loss. "I thought I was alone in my pain," she confessed, the vulnerability spilling from her heart like the rain drenching the ground outside. "But perhaps we are meant to face it together." Lightning cracked, and for a moment the cabin lit up like a stage, revealing the weight of their shared burden. The man's gaze softened, and he finally let out a slow breath that seemed to disperse the tension in the air. "What if I am not worthy of that?" He turned his eyes toward her, the storm's wrath mirrored in their depths. "Worthy?" she echoed, shaking her head. "What is worthiness but a fleeting notion? You survived, and in that survival lies a strength we can both draw from." Silence fell, pregnant with possibility. Outside, the world continued to drown beneath the rain, but the cabin felt like an oasis in the chaos, a space where words could be both weapons and shields. The man's breathing steadied, and for the first time, he leaned forward, a curious spark igniting in his eyes. "You speak as if you know pain intimately." Windy nodded, her fingers tracing the necklace draped around her neck. "I have lost much to this world, my tribe, my home, even my faith. Each piece taken, leaving only shadows behind." The man's expression shifted, empathy flickering across his scarred features. "You're a survivor, then." "Are we not all survivors?" she countered, the power of her words resting heavily in the flickering light. "You wear your scars proudly. They tell the story of what you've endured." He studied her, eyes narrowing, as if searching for the truth hidden beneath her words. "And what of you, Windy? What story do your scars tell? Of a girl who learned to embrace the storms, of a woman who yearns for justice in a world that has forgotten her kind." The wind howled, as if acknowledging her pain and resolve. He nodded, and a moment of understanding passed between them, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the desolation. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, a fragile alliance began to take shape, wrapped in the shadows of their pasts. Together, they were no longer alone. They were bound by the promise of what might rise from the ashes of their pain. The storm continued to howl like a wild animal, rattling the cabin's wooden frame as if trying to unearth the secrets buried within. Windy watched the flickering lantern, its glow warping the shadows into grotesque shapes as if mirroring the turmoil of her heart. Each gust of wind seemed to carry echoes of her past. Whispering memories of laughter turned to cries of despair, and she clenched the necklace against her chest, grounding herself against the tide of emotions. "Tell me about your tribe," the man said, his voice low yet reverberating through the charged space. His gaze was steady, like the calm before the storm, and nestled within the intensity of his eyes was the silent invitation to share her truth. Windy swallowed hard, the words caught in her throat like dry clay. "We were once a thriving people, living in harmony with the land, until the outsiders came." The memories dragged through her mind like heavy chains, each one a reminder of the beauty that was ripped away. "They pushed us from our homes, offering nothing but false promises and the empty sweetness of betrayal. I lost my family, my identity, my reason to believe." "Outsiders," he echoed, a deep frown creasing his brow. They take everything. The bitterness in his voice struck a chord, and she nodded. The land you see has scars too. It remembers, like us. He shifted slightly, the movement drawing her eyes back to his wounds. Each scar a testament to battles fought, both external and internal. We are all just ghosts of what we once were, he said, a shadow of resignation resting heavy on his shoulders. No, she insisted, her voice rising above the howl of the storm. We are survivors, not merely ghosts. As long as we breathe, we have the power to reshape our fates. He met her gaze, a flicker of something kindling beneath the weight of his despair. You speak with fire, Windy. It's rare to find such spirit. Storm clouds gathered outside, the wind howling a reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond the fragile walls. And you have a fire of your own, she countered, searching for the strength that lay hidden behind his scars. What happened to you? The question lingered in the air, heavy yet hopeful. He hesitated, eyes distant as memories painted shadows on his face. I was once a soldier, he admitted, each word laced with the burden of regret, fighting for a cause that was never mine. I witnessed too many injustices, too much bloodshed, and I turned my back on it all. I thought I could escape it here. The storm outside roared, responding to his confession as if in protest. But it followed, he continued, voice quiet, yet charged with emotion. Those memories haunt me. They never let me rest. I understand, Windy replied, feeling the sting of shared trauma wash over them. It's not the battles we fought that define us, but what we choose to do after. He looked at her, vulnerability breaking through the armor of solitude he had worn for so long. The lantern flickered, illuminating the dark creases of his face, revealing a man who had survived battles far greater than physical skirmishes. You think it's that simple? Maybe not simple, she countered, her voice steady. But it's possible. Together we can find a way to rise from this, for our people. He looked away, the shadows returning to his eyes. I'm not sure I can be the partner your people need. I've seen the worst in humanity. Then let us be each other's strength, she implored, leaning closer, the warmth of her presence wrapping around them like an embrace. We can forge a bond from the ashes of our pain. The cabin creaked, the wind shaking the walls like an impatient child. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the world beyond. Dark trees swaying, a torrential downpour blurring the horizon. Yet inside this small sanctuary, a different kind of storm brewed, one of hope and the possibility of redemption. Can you accept what you have become? She asked, the question hanging in the air like the scent of rain-soaked earth. Can you forgive yourself? A deep silence fell, the only sound the relentless assault of rain against the cabin. The man's jaw tightened, muscles rippling beneath the scars. Forgiveness is a luxury I can barely afford, he finally replied, his voice hoarse, the weight of his past pressing against his chest. But it's also the key to moving forward, Windy insisted, her heart racing as she watched him grapple with the truth of her words. You have the chance to rewrite your story, just as I do. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, the weight of unspoken understanding passing between them. The storm continued its raucous song outside, but within the cabin, an uncharted territory unfolded, a fragile promise resting on the precipice of hope. Perhaps, he murmured, a hint of something, maybe acceptance, flashed in those stormy eyes. But how do we begin? By acknowledging our pain and our strength, Windy replied, her breath steady as she reached for his hand. Their fingers brushed, the contact igniting a spark, a silent vow amidst the chaos that surrounded them. And by recognizing that we are not alone. The wind howled outside, but inside a new kind of energy surged, one that transcended the storms of the past. In the heart of the tempest, they had found something unexpected, a flicker of hope, the beginnings of a shared journey toward redemption. Together, they could navigate the tempest, within and without, finding solace in the strength they would build side by side. As the storm raged on, an unbreakable bond began to thread through the darkness, promising a light that would guide them both toward a future they could dare to hope for. The storm outside swirled and screamed, the wind clawing at the walls of the cabin, as if desperate to be let in. Inside, an unexpected warmth enveloped the space, a fragile cocoon spun of shared pain and nascent hope. Windy felt the pulse of the air between them, vibrant and alive, as if the very spirit of the mountains acknowledged the bond that was beginning to form. "Tell me your name," she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. "Not your past, but the name you've forgotten." The man hesitated, shadows flickering across his face. "Names carry weight," he said finally, a low rumble that seemed to echo against the rough walls. "They belong to the stories we tell, the lives we've lived." "Then let's rewrite those stories," she replied, determination igniting within her. "I will share mine if you share yours." His brow furrowed, the storm brewing in his eyes. "I've left my name behind, consigned it to the ashes of what I thought I could escape." "Then we will reclaim it," Windy insisted, the fervor in her heart spilling into her words. "A name is not merely a label. It binds us to our heritage. It's our talisman against the dark." A flash of lightning illuminated the contours of his face, revealing a flicker of something more than reluctance, a glimmer of interest, perhaps curiosity, brewing beneath the layers of his scars. "You speak as if your name holds power," he said, a trace of skepticism dancing on his tongue. "It does," she said, lifting her chin defiantly. "My name is Windy, and it means I'm a force of nature. I have shaped my fate just as the winds shape the land." He regarded her, the tension in his jaw easing slightly. "A force of nature, huh?" She nodded. "My tribe believed in the spirits of the earth and sky. They taught me to listen to the whispers of the wind, the rustle of the leaves. We all have spirits within us, waiting to be awakened." He leaned back against the wall, the weight of her words settling around him. "And what spirit do you think lingers in me?" "Fierce but wounded," she replied, feeling the truth of it course between them. "You carry the weight of battles lost and lives taken, but there's more than that. I sense a heart that yearns for redemption." He shifted, the flicker of the lantern casting light and shadow across his visage, illuminating the despair and resilience intertwined in the fabric of his being. "Redemption," he echoed, testing the word on his tongue like a forgotten hymn. "Is that really possible for someone like me? Isn't it possible for anyone who chooses to rise?" Windy pressed, her voice rising above the howls of the wind. "We are not defined by our pasts, but by the choices we make in the present." The man's gaze fell to the wooden floor, his fingers brushing the scars that marred his skin. "There was a time I fought for something I believed in. Then I watched that belief turn to ash." "Perhaps the ash can be nurtured back to life," she suggested, the warmth of conviction wrapping around them. "I know it can be done because I have witnessed it in the spirit of my people. We, too, faced injustices that threatened to drown us, yet we have endured. Resilience is our legacy." The wind howled, a guttural sound that echoed as if reflecting his own inner turmoil. "You have such faith," he said, lifting his gaze to meet hers with a newfound intensity. "How do you hold on to it after everything?" "Because I have no other choice," she admitted, her voice low but unwavering. "Faith is the ember that cannot be extinguished, even in the darkest storms. It is what drives me to seek justice for my people, to honor those who lost their lives in the fight for our existence." His expression softened, the furrow in his brow easing as he absorbed her words. "You fight for your people. And yet here I am, a ghost of a man, hiding from my own battles." "You are not a ghost," she corrected him gently. "You are flesh and bone, scars and stories. You breathe with me in this moment, and we share a fight to reclaim our lives." The storm outside raged on, but inside the cabin the atmosphere shifted. A spark ignited in his eyes, and he leaned forward, the shadows of despair beginning to lift. Perhaps I can share my truth." He relented, his voice low but steady. My name was once Elias. Elias, Windy repeated, tasting the name like a song that had long been forgotten. Elias, who survived the ravages of war, who witnessed injustice and chose to walk away. He nodded, the ghost of a smile flickering across his lips. I thought walking away was my path to freedom, but the truth is it just led me deeper into my own darkness. I understand, she replied, the connection blossoming between them, binding their stories together. You may have walked away from one battle, but you still have the power to choose how to face the next. The wind howled outside, its eerie wail echoing his turmoil, yet within the cabin, a different kind of wind began to swirl, a breath of hope and shared understanding that lifted the weight of isolation. Together they wrapped their words around the fragile ember of connection, drawing strength from the warmth of their shared scars. Let us face the storm together, Windy said, her heart racing with the possibility of a path forward. Let us reclaim what has been lost. Elias's expression softened, a glimmer of determination igniting behind the heaviness in his gaze. Together, he echoed, and in that moment, the storm outside began to mirror the shifting tides within them, a promise of resilience born from the ashes of their pain. The storm continued its relentless assault, the wind clawing at the cabin like a hungry beast, but within those weathered walls, a new energy pulsed. Windy and Elias sat side by side, the flickering glow of the lantern casting shadows that danced across their faces. Shadows that bore witness to their burdens, yet also flickered with the light of emerging hope. I remember the day they came for us, Windy began, her voice barely rising above the thrum of the storm. We were gathered by the river, our laughter mingling with the sound of the water. But then the gunshots rang out, sharp and cruel, shattering the peace. In an instant, the river turned red, and those echoes haunt me still. Elias's brow furrowed, the weight of her memories settling heavily between them. I've heard those same echoes. I was once a soldier in that fight, a pawn in a game I never understood. Orders came down like rain, relentless and unforgiving. He paused, eyes flickering with shadows of regret. I thought I was doing right by my country, but I was wrong. So wrong. Windy felt her heart twinge at the pain woven into his confession. You were not the cause of their hatred, Elias. You were a victim of a system that knew no compassion. He turned to her, searching her eyes, as if looking for a way back to himself. But I am stained by it. I took lives and watched innocents die. I became the thing I swore to fight against. No, Windy replied, her voice sharp with conviction. You are not defined by your past. You have the power to choose who you want to be now. The lantern flickered, casting a warm glow that illuminated the determination in her features, and for a moment, the weight of their shared scars felt lighter. Elias's breath caught, the shadows in his eyes shifting toward something softer, something more vulnerable. If only it were that easy, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Each night the faces come back to me, each cry, each plea, they haunt my dreams. Then let them guide you, she urged, leaning closer, fierce and unwavering. Let those memories fuel your fight for justice. We can reclaim our lives and the lives of those lost. Together. The wind howled outside, its mournful cries a mirror to the turmoil within. But within the cabin, a different kind of silence unfolded. His gaze held hers, the flickering lantern capturing the storm brewing in his heart, a storm that sought release. Tell me about your people, he said, breaking the heavy silence. What do you fight for? Windy smiled faintly, the emotion rising to the surface like a long, dormant river. We fight for our land, for our stories. We have danced in the light of the stars, sung to the moon, and we will not let our voices be silenced. Her words lingered between them, the passion igniting a fire that momentarily pushed the shadows back. I want to honor them, to show the world that we are here, that we exist, and that our pain matters. Elias nodded slowly, absorbing her fervor like a man long parched. You hold such strength, he murmured, vulnerability cracking through his hardened exterior. What if I can't find mine? You already have, she replied softly, reaching for his hand. Their fingers intertwined, a bridge across the chasm of their isolation. You chose to share your truth with me. That takes courage, more than any weapon ever could. He closed his eyes, the warmth of her grasp weaving through his scars, a balm against the ghosts that gnawed at him. And what if I fail? Failure is just a step on the way to finding redemption, she assured him, her voice low and steady. It's part of the journey, not the end of it. Outside, the rain intensified, the sound like 1,000 drums pounding against the earth. A rumble of thunder overhead seemed to echo their unspoken fears, but it was met with the pulse of something greater, a promise that they would face it together. Elias opened his eyes, the storm within him shifting as if a window had cracked open to let in light. You really believe that? I do, she replied, squeezing his hand tighter. You have a choice now. We both do. We can either dwell in the shadows of our pasts or step into the light of what could be. The lantern flickered again, illuminating the contours of his face, revealing the man beneath the scars, a man still capable of hope, still capable of love. What if I can't make it right? His voice trembled, the weight of his sins coiling around him like a noose. Then we will make it right together, she vowed, her heart racing with the urgency of the moment. You and I, we can carve a path through this darkness. He tilted his head, curiosity rising like the dawn. You really think the two of us can change anything? Change begins with us, Elias, she insisted, her voice steady as the wind howled outside. We can be the spark that ignites the fire of justice. His gaze held hers, a silent acknowledgement passing between them as the storm continued to rage. In that flickering light a bond was forged, not merely of survival, but of shared purpose and a yearning for redemption that coursed through their veins like the lifeblood of the land itself. Then let's fight for them, he said, a newfound conviction swelling within him. For your people and for my own. The storm howled, but inside the cabin, a new storm brewed, a tempest of hope and resilience, swirling with the promise of a dawn yet to come. Together, they would rise from the ashes of their pasts and step forward into the uncertain light, ready to reclaim their stories and reshape their fates. The storm persisted outside, a relentless howl that rattled the cabin's frame, but within, an unexpected calm settled over Windy and Elias. The lantern's flame flickered, casting gentle shadows that danced on the walls, weaving their pasts and hopes into a tapestry of newfound understanding. They remained locked in the moment, fingers entwined, a fragile yet unyielding bond unfurling between them. What will we do next? Elias asked, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. The storm outside echoed his inner turmoil, a cacophony of chaos and threat. How do we fight for justice when the world seems against us? Windy felt the weight of his question, its gravity echoing through her bones. She took a deep breath, inhaling the earthy scent of damp wood and rain-soaked earth, grounding herself in the present. We start small, she replied, her heart racing. We reach out to those who still remember. If we can gather our people, we can remind them that we are not forgotten. His gaze met hers, stormy yet searching. And if they don't want to listen, then we show them, she said, her conviction rising like the tide. We let our actions speak louder than words. Together, we'll carve a path through the darkness. The wind rattled the cabin again, a primal sound that seemed to mock their resolve, but Windy's spirit didn't waver. For the first time, she felt the stirrings of hope, not just for her people, but for Elias, too. You need to believe we can do this, she urged, her voice soft yet unwavering. He nodded slowly, the shadows of doubt still lingering at the edges of his heart. I want to believe, but there's so much blood on my hands. Windy leaned closer, the warmth of their shared breath mingling in the space between them. We all carry the weight of our choices, Elias, but it's what we do with that weight that defines us. We can choose to carry it as a burden or transform it into a fire that fuels our fight. Elias's eyes flickered with something, perhaps understanding, perhaps a longing for redemption. You're stronger than you know. The sincerity in his voice struck her like a flash of lightning, igniting a warmth in her chest. And you are stronger than you believe, she countered, sensing the shift in their dynamic. The man who fought those battles still resides within you. He's searching for a new purpose, one that can bring honor to your past. The wind howled outside, but it no longer felt threatening. It felt alive, a reminder that even chaos could give way to transformation. In that moment, Windy saw a flicker of the warrior in Elias, a man who had faced the storm and survived. "Then we must act before the storm claims any more of our people," he said, steeling himself. "What do you suggest we do?" "We gather what remains of my tribe," she replied, excitement sparking in her veins. "There are those who have slipped through the cracks of history but still hold the stories of our people. We have to find them and remind them that their voices matter." He shifted, the anticipation illuminating his scarred features. "And how do we find them?" "We can follow the trails of the past," she explained, her heart racing as ideas swirled. "The old paths, the stories of our ancestors, they weave through these mountains like veins through the earth. We'll visit the sacred sites, the places where the spirits linger. If our people can see that the land remembers, they may rally behind us." Elias considered her words, the tension in his jaw easing as he absorbed her vision. "And when we gather them? What then?" "Then we stand together," she said, her voice steady, "and we make our presence known. We cannot allow the world to forget us. We will demand justice, not just for our losses, but for the future we deserve." The lantern flickered, illuminating the fierce determination in Windy's gaze, and for the first time, Elias felt a glimmer of certainty. "We will need supplies, provisions for the journey," he said, already calculating the steps. "There's an old trading post not far from here," Windy replied, her heart racing at the thought. "It's been abandoned for years, but it may still hold remnants of what we need." Elias nodded, the edges of his mouth lifting slightly. "Then that's our first destination." They shared a moment of understanding, a silent promise exchanged in the glow of the lantern. The storm outside continued its furious dance, but within the cabin a new storm brewed, a tempest of purpose igniting between them. "Let's leave at dawn," Windy declared, excitement coursing through her. "While the world is still asleep, we can slip away like shadows." He nodded again, the raw energy of their resolve igniting a fire deep within him. "And what about after? After we'll follow the whispers of the land, trace the paths of my people, and reclaim our stories," she promised, her eyes sparkling with conviction. "And together we will forge a new future." As the storm raged on outside, Windy and Elias exchanged ideas, their voices barely above the roar of the tempest. Each plan, each shared memory carved a deeper connection between them, the flickering lantern a testament to the warmth growing within the cabin. For the first time, they forged a new path, one lit by the fragile glow of hope and the fierce determination to reclaim their lives. Together, they would face the storm outside and the tempest within, rising from the ashes of their pain toward the promise of redemption that awaited them. The roar of the storm faded into the background, replaced by the sound of their hearts beating in unison, defiant against the odds, ready to carve their path through the darkness. The dawn broke with a hesitant light, the storm's rage now a distant growl, leaving behind a world washed anew. Windy stepped outside the cabin, the cold air biting at her skin, a reminder of the battle she had faced. Dew clung to the grass, each droplet a sparkling testament to the night's chaos. She took a deep breath, the scent of earth and fresh pine filling her lungs, grounding her in the purpose that surged within her. Elias emerged behind her, his silhouette framed by the pale light, a ghost stepping into the new day. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low, carrying a weight like the clouds that had just departed, leaving an uncertain sky in their wake. "More than ever," Windy replied, a flicker of determination igniting in her chest. Together, they moved through the remnants of the night, packing what little belongings they had into a weathered saddlebag, an old blanket, a few provisions salvaged from the cabin, and the echoes of their shared resolve. As they set off, the air crackled with a tension that felt alive, each footfall a reminder that they were stepping into a world fraught with dangers, but also possibilities. The mountains loomed around them, their heights dictating the rhythm of their journey, casting long shadows that caressed the earth like a lover's touch, a promise of shelter against the chaos. Windy led the way, her heart racing with the pulse of the land beneath her feet. She searched the terrain, recalling the stories her people told of the sacred pathways that wound through these valleys. "We follow the river," she said, pointing toward the distant sound of water cascading over rocks. "It will guide us to the post." Elias nodded but remained silent, the weight of his past drawing shadows across his features as he walked beside her. The scars on his arms glistened with moisture, reminders of battles fought in a life he wished to forget. "What if we're too late?" he finally asked, vulnerability creeping into his tone like a chill wind. "We're not," Windy replied, her voice steady, even as doubt flickered through her mind. "We have each other, and that's a start." The river grew louder as they approached, its rush a constant reminder of the urgency of their mission. A damp fog clung to the ground, rising like spirits waking from a long slumber, wrapping around their ankles as they traversed the rocky bank. When they reached the trading post, its weathered facade stood against time like a weary sentinel waiting for the return of the living. "Stay close," Windy urged, caution lacing her words as they stepped inside. The door creaked open, a mournful sound that echoed through the empty space, revealing a world dusted with neglect. The scent of old wood mixed with the remnants of long-lost spices, a ghostly waft of memories hanging in the air like a forgotten lullaby. Elias moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the interior for threats, remnants of his past training surfacing instinctively. "We'll need to check for supplies quickly," he said, his voice low, tension rippling in the silence. Windy nodded, her heart thumping in her chest as she ventured further into the darkened corners of the post. Shadows danced along the walls, and each creak of the floor echoed with a sense of foreboding. She glanced back at Elias, finding him searching the shelves lined with dusty jars, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Look here!" he called, excitement breaking through the tension. He held up a jar of dried herbs, its label barely legible. "This could be helpful." Good find," she replied, a spark igniting between them as they exchanged a rare smile, the warmth of shared purpose melting the walls of their pasts for just a moment. They continued their search, rummaging through old crates, collecting whatever could aid them on their journey. Among the rusted tools and faded textiles, they discovered a small cache of dried meat and hardtack, enough to sustain them for a while. Just as they began to feel the thrill of success, a sound shattered the fragile atmosphere, a heavy footfall outside, followed by voices. Elias's expression shifted, alert and tense, eyes narrowing as he moved closer to the door, urging Windy to do the same. "Stay low," he whispered, the command barely a breath yet laced with urgency. Windy nodded, her heart racing as they crouched behind a stack of empty barrels, the timber cold against her back. The voices approached, laughter mingling with the harshness of men who had seen too much blood for any kindness to linger. "Did you see what was left behind?" one of them boasted, his tone thick with bravado. "We could take what is ours and still have enough to drink for a month." Elias tensed beside her, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he listened intently, the shadows of his past rearing their heads like specters in the night. "We need to go," he murmured, adrenaline coursing through him. "No," Windy said, her voice steady with resolve. "We can't leave empty-handed. Not after this." His gaze met hers, desperation flickering in the depths of his stormy eyes, as the men's laughter echoed outside, mingling with the tension thickening the air. "We're outnumbered, Windy. We don't know who they are or what they want." "I won't let them take what little we've gathered," she replied fiercely, her heart pounding. "If they mean to reclaim this place, they must know we're here first." In that moment, a decision crystallized between them, a silent pact forged in the fires of their shared pain. She could feel the weight of her past whispering in her ear, urging her to rise, to fight for all that had been lost. "Then we'll do this together," Elias said, the warmth of determination flooding his voice. "Whatever comes next, we face it as one." The men stepped closer, their laughter echoing like thunder in the stillness, and Windy's heart thundered in time with the impending confrontation, her breath quickening as she prepared to face the storm of humanity that would test their resolve. Together, they would rise against the darkness, ready to reclaim their stories and carve their path through the chaos. The storm may have raged outside, but inside they found a fire, a flicker of hope ignited by the bond of survival, awaiting the chance to blaze a trail into the dawn. The laughter of the men outside was abruptly silenced by a singular, piercing shout. "I'll find what's left of this place, and when I do—" Windy and Elias exchanged a glance, the weight of their resolve pressing upon them like the storm clouds overhead. "We don't have much time," Elias urged, his voice low as he edged closer to the doorway. The light streaming through the gaps in the wood bathed his face in stark relief, revealing the fierce determination etched into his features. "Then we make our stand," Windy whispered, her heart racing with the pulse of the river outside, the echoing roar of water reminding her of what was at stake. She reached for the necklace around her neck, the twisted metal and bone of her ancestors, a symbol of survival and loss. "This is not just about us. It's about reclaiming their stories, our stories." Elias nodded, the flicker of movement in his eyes sparking something deeper within, a recognition of his own buried past. He took the necklace in his hands, feeling its weight as he understood its significance. "Let's turn that weight into strength." Together, they stepped from behind the barrels, the dim light of the trading post illuminating their figures in stark contrast to the darkness lurking outside. The men had gathered in a loose circle, their coarse voices tangled in bravado and greed. "Look! The rats have come out to play!" one of the men bellowed, his laughter ringing hollow as he caught sight of Windy and Elias. The others turned, their expressions shifting from confusion to menace, like wolves poised for a hunt. "Leave this place," Windy commanded, her voice stronger than she felt, echoing with the spirits of her ancestors. "You take nothing from here." A moment of silence stretched in the air, heavy with tension. The men shifted, their eyes narrowing, and the leader stepped forward, a sneer twisting his lips. "And who are you to tell us what to take?" Elias stepped beside Windy, his presence a shield of silent strength. "I am the man who survived battles fought for honor and truth. And she," he said, gesturing to Windy, "is the voice of those long silenced." The leader laughed, a cruel sound that reverberated through the air. "You think you can scare us away?" "Not scare," Windy replied, her heart racing as she clutched the necklace tighter, feeling its warmth pulse against her skin. "Remind." With that she took a step forward, the glow of the lantern casting their shadows against the wall, elongating their figures like warriors of old. "We are not just ghosts of our past. We are here to reclaim our future." The men hesitated, the bravado wavering.